He got a broom, he ain't cleaning his room, get the drop and he's sweeping it up. Ay, she wanna fuck with a tug, she bring her friends, skis in a car. Racks, I can't get enough. Simon says you niggas are blocked. Ay, and now.
Yo guys, what's up? And today, as you can see by the title, we are doing our Futties card predictions. Now these cards are all going to be SBCs or objectives, because last year Futties cards were always that, and the main point of Futties is that they release old SBCs and all cards are in packs. So these are all going to be SBC or objective cards. There was 30 cards last year, so we're going to make 30 prediction cards. Last year EA released these kind of player picks that all contained like players that might get a Futties card, and the community had to vote for the ones they wanted, and then EA would release it as a proper Futties card as an SBC. Just as a quick side note guys, some of these cards the players may not have performed well during the season, but that's not the point. The whole point of Futties, in case you didn't know, is where EA released like very OP cards and make them even more ridiculous. Like they make all these endgame card SBCs. So like for instance, last year they made Pogba and all those types of players, and Hazard. And yeah, let's get into this. Alright guys, so at number 1 I've picked Langley. Now this guy, I don't know why he hasn't got a single special card this year. Like I don't know if he was injured a lot of the season, but I think he'll get a Futties card. Finally, he should get a special card because everyone wants a special card of him. He would be insane as a Futties card, and I reckon his SBC price would be quite expensive. I reckon it'll be 400-500k because he'd have incredibly high pace. Compared to all other 91s, Diego Carlos team of the season would be very similar, and he's 600k, and Futties is an endgame thing, so I think he'd be cheaper. Alright guys, so next I reckon Ousmane Dembele will get one. His 87 was a pretty good card, but EA being EA, they'll probably release him as an incredibly good card. They'll probably make him a very high rating, and they'll make him even more broken than he is. I reckon the SBC will probably cost around 400k. Next I've picked Martial. Now I think he will probably get one, and I've put him as a striker because I think Martial would be a better striker than winger in this game. I think they'd probably make him about 300k. I think he'd crash loads of other striker prices like Richarlison team of the season, and Naxi's he would be very similar. He'd be a very good card as well, very usable if they upgrade his 3-star weak foot. Next I've picked Saint Maximin. Now this one will be very controversial because I think it will be way cheaper than his foot birthday because of 5-star 5-star. This one of course will be 5-star 4-star, and because people are dumb, they think 5-star weak foot is very important in the game, don't get me wrong, but people take it over stats, which I think is dumb. His foot birthday one's currently 1,000,000 coins, so I reckon this SBC will be way cheaper. It will be probably about cheapest 500k. I reckon 550-600k. Hopefully EA make it cheaper though. Next I've picked Mendy. Now I think EA will most likely release this card because he has been used by like everyone in this game. Like he was one of the most expensive 80 rated cards in this whole FIFA. Like I see him in weekend leagues still, the 80 rated card, so I reckon he'll probably get a Footmas card, a Futties card, and he'll be very broken in game. I reckon he'll be max 250k, probably cheaper. Again, I think EA will probably release Semedo, another really broken card in the game. I see his 82 being used in weekend league as well. I reckon this SBC will probably cost about 400-500k because his headliner is still that price, but I reckon it'll crash if he gets a Futties. Next I've picked Douglas Costa. Now I think he may get one because people are still disappointed with his foot birthday, which only had like 75 finishing, so if he got a Futties card he'd be incredibly broken. I reckon he'll be about 500-600k. Again, look at those stats, he'd be mental in game. Next I've picked Thorgan Hazard. Now I think he'd be a very good one to be included in Futties. I think he'd be probably about 150k max. His stats would be very good and he'd be a very OP player. Next I've picked Partey. Now I think he'd be an incredibly good CDM. He'd be one of the best in the game. He'd be a very well-rounded centre mid. I reckon he'll be about 350, 400k. Because of his nation, he wouldn't be that easy to link. But if you had a Liga team or hybrid, he'd link him very well. Next I've picked Shaqiri. Now EA being EA will probably re-release cards from last year's Futties. They always do that of every event, so I reckon he'll probably get another one. He'd be a very meta card with incredibly good passing, pace and dribbling, and he has 5-star, 4-star. Because it's nearly the end of the game, EA, I reckon he'll probably be about 200k. Next I've picked Kolarov. Now I really hope this guy gets a Futties. He's absolutely broken. He has very, very good all-round stats. He's like Hullet gang. He's amazing. He would be one of the best cards in FIFA with those stats. Incredibly good all-round stats. The only problem with him is he's a bit hard to link with his nationality, but you could strong link him to Nainggolan and all those Roma players. Next I've picked Mbabu. Now remember this guy's Europa League card, it was absolutely broken and he was an objective as well. I see people still use that card. He's incredible in game and his base gold card was going for nearly max price near the beginning of the game. If he had a Futties, he'd be incredibly broken. He'd have very, very high pace, defending, dribbling, passing. He'd be an end game, one of the best right backs in the whole game. I reckon his SBC price would probably be 200 to 300k because of his nationality and club, he's not that easy to link. Next up, I've picked Nicolas Pepe. Now this guy, at the beginning of FIFA, his 83 rated card was going for nearly 100k, which is crazy. I think he'd be a very meta card. He has 5-star, 4-star. I think he should be 5-star, 5-star, but look at those stats. He'd be an incredibly good winger or midfield player. And I think his SBC will cost 200, 300k because of his nationality. Next up, I've picked Akanji. Now, I don't know if EA might change it up this time. I don't know if they might release it as a proper promo where they put all the cards in packs and they're on the market and stuff. But I reckon if they keep it the same as last year, he'd be probably about 200k, 300k because he's an incredibly good centre-back card. But he might be hard to link, but he'd get very good Borussia Dortmund links with like Hummel's team of the season. Next I've picked Juan Jesus. Now I reckon this guy would be like 300, 400k because look at that incredibly good card. He'd be very well easy to link with Nainggolan and all the Brazilians. His Europa League card was broken as it is and he was quite expensive. So I reckon same with Mbabu, I think he'd be really expensive. And he got one last year, so it's highly likely that they'll re-release him again because EA are lazy. Next I've picked Helson Martins. Now this guy's storyline card was really broken. Imagine him with max pace and incredibly good shooting and dribbling. He'd be broken. I reckon his SBC would be probably around the 200k mark because of he's from Monaco, so he's not that easy to link and he has a 3-star weak foot, so hopefully they upgrade that. Next I've picked Kimpembe. Now the reason why I gave him incredibly high physicals, which I kind of regret now, is because all these upgrades I based on their past cards. So I saw how much his physical got upgraded and I was like, oh, I'll upgrade that again, but I realized 96 physical is a bit unrealistic for an 89 rated card. But ignore that. I think his SBC would be 300k because he can link very well. And EA being EA will probably re-release him from last year's Futties. Next I've got Mendes. Now I reckon EA will probably release him as an objective card because he's got pretty good well-rounded stats, but he's not like amazing compared to the other ones. So I reckon EA will give him an objective card for free. Next I've got Neres. Now everyone was very disappointed with his Champions League card, including me. I lost so much money on that card. I lost like 100 and something k on that card. So hopefully he gets a Futties card. His stats would be incredibly good as a winger and hopefully he comes out. I reckon his SBC will probably be about 300k because of it. He is from Ajax, so he is actually quite easy to link, so I reckon he'd be probably about 300, 400k. Next, of course, I've got to pick Ryan Kent. Now, it doesn't look like EA are going to release him as an SBC for Team of the Season, which has triggered the whole community. But I reckon if he doesn't get one Team of the Season, he'll defo get a Futties card. He is literally like the most broken card in the whole game. I see him on everyone's benches. I regret not doing this guy. He's got a 5-star weak foot as well. And if you got an incredibly high rated card, he'd be very expensive. He'd be like probably 400k for that card. He's English, so he's not hard to link, but he is like the most broken card in the game. Now for goalkeeper spot, I've gone Areola. No one really cares about goalkeepers. They're usually a really cheap SBC, like He probably cost about 50k. Last year they released Neto, who was a decent keeper, but no one really cares, to be honest. Next I've gone Nathan Ake. Now remember this winter refresh card this year, he was like 84 rated, but because of his very high pace and his Premier League, he was ridiculous. He was like 100 plus k for an 84 rated. If he got a 90 rated, I reckon this card will probably be about 250k to 350k price range, because I reckon the market will crash massively when Futties comes out, and he'd be a very good centre back. Next I've picked Ndombele. Now me, along with like the whole FIFA community, was really pissed. Like, we all like grinded so hard for this ones to watch card, which is 81 rated. I thought he would get a couple upgrades, but he didn't really do anything for Spurs, and because of that he never got a single upgrade, so it was a complete waste of time. And hopefully he does get a free objective Futties card. Now he'd be a very decent centre mid. He was quite broken in the game, but he'd be like quite low rated for a special. He'd be 88 rated, so I reckon he wouldn't be too expensive if he was an SBC, but I think he'll be an objective. Now most of these cards I've actually picked have got Futties last year, which I've just clocked, and EA being EA will probably definitely do that. But Walker was incredibly broken last year, like, and this year his inform and his headliner were incredibly broken, so I reckon if he got Futties it'd be quite expensive. He'd be about 350, 400k again. Now for very high rated cards, I'd probably pick Raheem Sterling. Now I reckon he'd be like very high rated. Last year it was Hazard who got a 97, so I think Sterling would probably get a 95 or something like that if he got one. I think he'd be about 500k, 400k maybe. But he'd green link with Walker. If he got a right wing card, that would be perfect, but I reckon he might be left wing. EA, if they don't like upgrade his weak foot to 4-star, because he has a 3-star weak foot, they might decrease his price. He might actually be 350k. Next I've picked Correa. Now his card this year, his foot birthday, was very meta and it was very cheap. It was 4-star, 5-star though, and if you got a Futties he'd only be 4-star, 4-star, and because EA made weak foot so crucial in this game, he probably would be cheaper, if not that much more expensive for this card, even though he had to have way more stats. I think he'd be about max 200k, he'd probably be 150k. Next I've picked Roussillon. Now his card this year, Footmas card, was very good. It was an objective as well, it was quite broken as well, so if he got a Futties card, I reckon he'd be probably about 150k max. He wouldn't be too high rated, but he'd be a decent, pretty broken left back card, and he's easy to link. Next I've picked Herrera. Now he'd be a very, very good CDM card. He'd be a well balanced midfielder and centre mid as well. I think he has high aggression as well, so he'd be pretty good in game. I think he wouldn't be too expensive. He'd probably be max 150k, maybe less. And it would be nice for us Arsenal fans to see the full potential that his Europa League card could have got before we got knocked out by Olympiacos. Alright, so next I've picked Bernard. Now this guy would be a very good one to get. I think he would be quite cheap. He'd be relatively cheap. He'd be like max 200k for those stats as well, because he's from Everton, so he strong links the team of the season Richarlison, and he'd be a very good card. He's got like 99 balance and agility already, and his Scream Club was pretty good in game. Finally, I've picked Morales. Now this guy would be incredible. His 82 was pretty broken in game with 4-star, 4-star, and his moments look decent. This one would be amazing with nearly max dribbling, pace, and very good shooting. I reckon he'd be about 250k, maybe a bit less, 200k. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, like, subscribe, make sure to follow all my social medias down in the description below, all on that Linktree link, especially my Instagram. This is where we post all my YouTube stuff. Subscribe to my second reaction channel, new videos soon, and this channel will have new FIFA content coming soon. And yeah, peace.
If CC on my feet, Mac and Marie, my jeans. Bloody shoes, murder scene, CSI on these streets. Niggas, man, can't compete. I make racks in my sleep. Ain't had lean all week. I've been on Hennessy.